actually being recorded.
Okay.
Okay. So Jennifer, I'm going to talk about this course itself. Mostly it is going to be an outline of what the manual testing is. And later on, there's an outline for automation as well. But I think I'm going to kind of stay with the outline for the course. So what the course is going to cover. So this manual testing course is roughly 4 weeks. And in this course, what we'll talk about is what is software testing? And what type of testing is covered in software? What are some of the roles and responsibilities of a software tester? What is the career path that a software tester follows? Now, what is software development lifecycle? And what is software testing lifecycle? They're kind of related. And we'll talk about what some of the differences are. And we'll talk about the waterfall and V models. These are different project management approaches that are taken to initiate projects. We'll talk about those. We'll talk about some of the test documentation that you will be dealing with, some of the test scenarios, what are the test cases, and what is the test data. Then we'll go into what is a requirement traceability matrix. So these are some of the documentations that you will be doing as a software tester. So we'll break it down for you and show you how they're done. Then we'll go into talk about test environment and some of the checklists that you'll have to go through. And the defect management process. Now, software testing is really looking for defects, and we'll talk about how we can manage defects. Then we'll talk about the agile methodology. Nowadays, 95% of the projects that are associated with software development are really on agile methodology. And there's agile certification as well. And some people have done that. But we'll talk about what that is. And then we'll go into introduction to SQL. Now, SQL is more like a language, more like a software. It's several different commands that you run to extract information out from database. And we'll talk about some of that. Okay. Now, what is software testing? As I'm sharing some of these pictures with you, in New York, there was a grid failure about 15, 20 years ago. The entire New York went dark. That really was a glitch in a software that caused the outage. And it wasn't properly tested, wasn't defined, and created an outage. We had plane crashes that happened because of defects. Recently heard about the 737s that were grounded, 737 MAX. The entire fleet of planes were grounded because of software glitch.
Oh, wow.
The companies lost billions and billions of dollars. And these planes are still grounded, if I recall. The MAX jets, you must have heard about it 3 years ago. All of them are grounded. Huge, huge problems. Car crashes nowadays, I mean, you have a lot of the GPS-based self-driven cars, and they're being tested right now, and they want to test them with all the bugs so the cars don't crash. And they stay in the lanes, and they can watch the traffic, and they take all the right moves, all done through software. Satellites are getting launched through software. All the satellites that are out there doing communication, GPS, and everything else is based on software. As you look around, there are a lot of things that are done outside that are done based on software. But 4 years ago, no, not 4 years ago, actually 8 years ago, 7 years ago or so, Obama administration introduced the Obamacare Act. This was a healthcare for people who didn't have the healthcare. They were expecting maybe 30,000 or so people to log in at one time when they opened up the gates. There were over 100,000 people who logged in and literally crashed the system. Part of the reason is it wasn't properly software tested. Some of the requirements that came in, they didn't design for that. So a lot of this actually goes back to being able to not only develop the product, that it needs to be properly tested. And this is where the software testers come in, and they add a lot of value to the products and that's created. Now, what is software testing? There are four simple steps that you follow for software testing. And number one is to verify and validate the completeness of the software product, make sure it is complete. Second is check if product meets business and technical requirements. Example would be plane will continue flying, wouldn't crash. Obamacare, for example, can accommodate over 100,000 people or so logging in at the same time, and system is able to sustain it. So you scale it and design it to a point where it works. Third one is identify technical bugs and ensure the software is glitch-free. This is MaxJet 737 that was grounded literally for 3 years. Billions of dollars were lost because of the software glitch. It wasn't found. Developers can develop it, but the testers is a separate group of people who need to test it to make sure it works properly. Fourth one is generate a high-quality test case and test issues to correct problem reports. So basically, this is where a lot of the documentation comes in, a lot of the analysis comes in, and how you present this. But this is roughly what the software testing consists of. And we'll talk about techniques and tools and processes that you'll learn as a software tester to be able to do this. Okay. Continuing on with the software testing. Now, your goal really is to have a best quality product when you test it. Also, save time and resources used. Make sure it doesn't crash, it runs efficiently, and works properly. Business optimization. Again, it goes back to make sure system is working properly, that it serves the purpose that it needs to. And user experience. Okay. Bottom line is, what is the user experience? Nowadays, when you're locked down, even before the lockdown, all the options that we have, all the software that is produced outside, you want to have the user experience. You go to Amazon. Amazon make it a real user-friendly product. You can go in, you can pick your product, you can buy it instantly. It doesn't take too long to keep your information there. So the user experience that you have with Amazon is fantastic. And this is what all the companies are going for. They want to make sure the user experience is at the top. If you're not going to make the user experience good, people are not going to come to your website. They're not going to buy your product, and it is not going to be promoted. And, the competition is going to beat you. So customer satisfaction is a key. But you really need to focus on that. Bottom line, if your product is good, customers like it, they'll buy it, you make money from that. And this is what the business is all about, making money. Okay, the type of software testing. Now, the different type of software testing that is done. They'll talk about manual testing. They'll talk about automation. Now, with the manual testing, you have a lot of different types of testings under the manual testing. There's a white box testing, there's black box testing, there's a gray box testing. Okay. White box testing really is when you look at the box meaning system, you're looking at inside to make sure things are what it is, what is inside the box, what are some of the processes that are working properly. That means you're looking inside the code and making sure the code is working well. That's white box, meaning you can see through it. Black box really is, you can't see the code. All you know is what you're putting in and what you're getting out. So what you do, in the majority of the times, what you're doing is in this black box testing, right? What that means is you don't know what's going on inside, but all you know is you're feeding information and something is coming out. So you're looking at the functional aspect of it. Within functional aspect, you look at unit testing, you look at integration testing, you look at system testing, and you look at user acceptance testing. Okay. Now, unit testing is a particular unit or component. It is supposed to do X, Y, and Z. For example, you're putting a gift in, What it does is basically does a gift wrap and puts a bow on top. And that's what the unit is supposed to do. You don't know what's going on inside, but it does that every single time. And when you're testing it, make sure it works 100% of the time. But if it works 9 times out of 10, you'll report the one time when it fails as a defect. And that's what the unit testing really would be. Integration testing would be, okay, for example, you're putting a gift box in, it wraps it. Integration would be you putting a address label on it, and that address label is accurate. So it's an integration of two systems. It not only gift packs it, it gets the address from another system and puts it in. And that would be integration testing. Uh, System testing. System testing overall would be making sure that everything works together properly. And sometimes you may have a glitch, and you identify that. Now, user acceptance testing. User acceptance testing would be at the end, what is the user experience? Is our user happy with it? And does the user accept the product? And does he want it? And is he willing to pay you for it? And that's what the acceptance testing would be. At the end of the day, whatever product that you're making, the user will have to accept that when you get it paid. If it is not, you won't get paid. So that's why it's very important. Now, along with the functional testing, there's some of the non-functional testing too, which is consisting of capability testing, compatibility testing, performance testing, and usability testing. We'll talk about in more detail what some of these testing is as you dig deeper into software testing side. Okay. Now, your role as a software tester. Now, roles and responsibility of a software tester basically is when you look at it, the companies, and how has the team divided up? You may have a project manager, and within project manager, you will have a business analyst, a technical architect, a developer, and a tester. Now, sometimes you just have a tester, depending on the size of the team. If it is a big company or larger group who does that as a service for other companies, you may have an entire testing team. And your testing team would consist of your manager, your test lead, and a bunch of different testers under that. So that could be one arrangement where you go, or you may be a group of testers which are here. But roughly, you're working with the developers, you're working with an architect, you're working with a business analyst, and sometimes you actually have DBAs as part of the developers as well. The combination of developers and business analysts is who the testers work with. And you as a team work together in Okay, we got a problem here. Okay. You guys, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I don't see your screen.
My screen? Okay. Let me see if I can share the screen again. Where did I lose you?
You were talking about the testers where it was
Okay. Sounds good.
it was like the project manager, and then it was each individual one. Like you said, sometimes we work with developers and the others, and then
Okay. So this
yeah,
is where we were.
yeah.
Anil? Okay, sounds great. Anil, so it looks like you've joined us. Can you hear us, Anil?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Can you see the screen? Okay, fantastic. Looks like you're joining from mobile device. So that's okay, as long as you can see the system. Okay. Anyway, let's come back to this point. Want to make sure that different roles and responsibilities you can see. Starts off with basically a project manager. Under project manager, you'll have different roles of business analyst. And this is a person that goes between the customer and the technical team. A technical architect is the one who understands all the technology and how it is put together. He's a brain behind the whole thing. The developers basically develop the product based on requirements from technical architect. And the testers, they make sure that whatever developer is developing it, it meets customer needs and it tested properly. So these are the different roles. And sometimes under a tester, you actually have an entire team, test manager, and under that you will have test leads and different testers. And that can span across horizontally. And you can have a larger team or smaller team depending on the structure that you might be in. But roughly, we'll be working closely with the developers, business analyst, technical architect, and the project manager. But generally, you'll have a scrum master as well. I'll talk about that a little further down. Now, different roles and responsibilities of a software tester. Now, software testing responsibility really is you have to be critical and analytical in things that you do. Because you'll have to analyze. And then you basically put together a test plan and how are you going to test things. And then you'll develop different scenarios that you would be testing. And then you'll have create test cases based on the scenarios. And then you write some of the test scripts and you'll gather data and how are you going to do the testing. And once you get done with the testing, you'll either pass it or you'll fail it. And if you fail it, that really would be considered a defect. And that's what the testers really do. Testers really get paid to find defects in the software, to make sure some of the bugs are identified, and it goes back to the developers to fix. Now, the career path for a software tester really is kind of like this. You start as a manual tester, which the class is, and then you can move on to as an automation tester, where you write scripts they'll automatically run and do the testing. And then you can become a test analyst or test lead. And then you can become a test manager, or you can become a test director. And this would be a direct path of staying in testing environment. However, what we really offer people different scenarios. We offer people that you can do a lot of different things. You can start with manual testing. Basically, you can move into business analyst. You can become a business analyst. We offer that course as well. You become an automation tester, which is the next course that you'll be taking. And more advanced would be a backend API testing, which is much more advanced. And you can become a software developer as well. Now, if you choose a path of technical, you can stay in this path, or you can choose a path to become more business side, and then you can become a business analyst, and then you can do your PMP, which is Project Management Professional Certification. Now, roughly at the bottom is what you see most people on the average make once they finish. most automation testers start around 80,000 or so. And backend API tester, people are up in 105,000. And software developers are really in 125,000 a year or so. If you choose a business analyst path, which is less technical, but more business type, and more process oriented, and more coordination, they roughly start around 90,000 and they go up from there. Now, PMP really is a project management professional. That certification kind of gets you up about 110 to 180,000 a year or so. Now, if you can choose a different path, now we also offer a Python and AWS training. And really it's designed for system engineers and DBAs, network people. They want to retool themselves to take advantage of all the migration which is going on in the cloud. And as you're aware, AWS is moving their headquarters here in Arlington, and they'll be bringing in roughly about 50,000 jobs in this area. Now, those 50,000 jobs, the median income for those jobs, a salary, is 140,000 a year. So it adds up. There's opportunities moving in this direction and a lot of money to be made here. And what we do is we create the opportunity for you to choose your path based on your background and skills. We help you and coach you to move in the direction that is suitable for you. And we'll kind of help you with the interview preparation. We also help you with the resume preparation, help you with the job placement. And we also offer post-job support. So you go into a job and you're nervous. You're not sure if you can handle all of that. You can basically sign a contract with us. We'll provide you support with technical people on the other side who would be able to help you. If you have any questions, you can drop them a note and they'll take a look at what you need help with and they'll guide you and advise you and coach you so you can get done with the job. On the weekend, you can have similar classes like this we're having, where you can break down your project. Hey, this is what's going on the project. I need help. Can you help me do that? We can help you, coach you, and guide you so you can actually get the job done. We do that generally for 2 months. And generally what we charge is $1,000 a month for 2 months to provide you support for the people to come in and help you. And once you get going, generally after 2 months, you're good. You'll be fine. So we provide you that support as well. So we want you to be successful, not only just by taking the class, we help you to be successful in your career as well. Any questions so far? Okay. Now, let's talk about, yeah, go ahead, Anil.
No, sir. Thank you. I have no questions. It's easy. Thanks.
Okay, great. Now, we'll dig deeper into software development lifecycle, which is SDLC, and software testing lifecycle, which is STLC. Now, generally, software development lifecycle follows a pattern in how you do things, and a small segment of that, the testing, you follow a different pattern as well, what the STLC lifecycle is. Now, STLC really is how everything is designed. You basically do a requirement evaluation. Hey, this are the requirements. Build me a system, online website that can sell products. That's how the whole thing starts, as an example. Then somebody actually designs it. Generally, it's the architect who designs it. I said, hey, I need to design somebody to help me design that. So they will design it. Then the implementation really would be somebody who is writing code, developing the website, and doing everything else. So once implementation is done, they bring in the testing people. Hey, come in and test this thing. Make sure this product works based on the requirements that we have, and make sure it's secure and it does what it needs to do. Testing basically approves it. And if something doesn't work, they bring it back and they fix it and they move it up. Once a tester approves it, it goes into the evaluation and basically goes back into production. So once that is in production, you'll analyze it again and kind of bring it back. It goes in a circle. That's what the SDLC is. But we are focused on just the testing itself. Each one of these areas is a little different. A different group of people do that. What we're going to focus on, we're just going to focus on the testing area. Well, once you get done with the SDLC, software development lifecycle, let's focus on SDLC because most of you will be living in this environment. What is SDLC? It starts with test planning. Now, how do we put together a test plan? And what is the output? And then we do the test analysis. Now, how do we analyze what we're testing? You put together a plan how you go about doing that. And test design. How are we designing the test? Are we going to do that from your phone? We can do that from your iPad, your laptop. I mean, these are some of the design things that you'll do. Test execution. You'll be executing the tests. How are you going to execute it? What is the output? How are you going to capture that? That would be the execution. Test closure. Once you get done with the test, what is the process you follow in doing a closure on this one? We'll cover this in a lot more detail in that module. We'll go and dig deeper into it. Okay, now we'll cover the two different models in how the testing and the design work is done. There's a V model and there's a waterfall model. Now I'm going to use this waterfall model as something that you do and you don't really go back. You don't have the opportunity to go back as much. Waterfall model, the reason they named it waterfall, because waterfall falls one way down and it doesn't go back up. For example, you have requirements that you're going to build a house. You want a 4-bedroom house. Then you're going to design a 4-bedroom house. Okay. Then you're going to start building the 4-bedroom house. And once the house is done, you're going to do the inspection that everything is built. And once everything is built, you're going to live there. So this is kind of the waterfall model. But if you look at this one, once you have the requirements and you have the budget, you design it. Okay. Once you design it, sometimes you don't change the requirements very often. If you change the requirements, you'll have to go back at this stage and redesign it. Okay. Once it is designed and design is approved from the city, you start building it. If you start building it, you can't change the design in the middle of it. You can't go back. You have to continue moving forward. So as you move forward, as you're building it, then you'll verify, you'll test it. That means you are going to validate that whatever the design was, and it meets the code, and it is 4 bedrooms, as you said, but it's not 5, but it's not 3. And once it is verified, you get the living permit to move in. So this is generally the trend you follow. Now, traditionally, this has been the trend that people have followed. For example, you want to build a rocket to send a man to the moon. It starts way back here, and it takes several years to design it, build it, and bring it at this point. And generally, the way the designs and everything that is done, you don't have an opportunity to go back and change things as often. It basically flows this way, and it takes years. Now, here would be maybe 5 years down the road that you're able to launch it and send it to the moon. It's a long design, and you can't go back. However, in software development, you have an opportunity to go back often, and you have an opportunity to basically do things and test things out at a smaller scale. So this is where the V model comes in. Okay, we basically, with the V model, follows this trend. Right here, one side, we actually are doing the design in part. You basically are taking, for example, requirements and analysis of your website. For example, you're building a website. Okay? You're doing a requirement analysis. So based on the requirement analysis, we can put together a system testing plan. And how are you going to test it? How are you going to validate that? And you can do the high-level design. And then when you do the high-level design, you can also put together integration testing plan. How are you going to do that? Then you're going to talk about detailed design. And based on the detailed design, you can also develop unit testing processes. So these kind of planning happen simultaneously. When you're developing down this way, you're also developing testing arrangements this way. we're doing the design analysis, we're doing the testing planning on this side. And once you get down to more details, then the implementation starts. And once the implementation starts, you can do small unit testing and small testing in this area as well. So you can see the product much sooner than a waterfall design. Now, with this one, you have more cost in the beginning. It's more expensive. And let's see if I can show you what the benefits are for the V model. Okay. Now, waterfall, all the requirements are defined early. Right? Both the models start with same. You have to have requirements to start something. You do that in the beginning. Cost for the waterfall model is kind of low in the beginning because you haven't built all the teams yet. You haven't brought everybody on board yet. So the cost is low in the beginning. However, with the V model, it's more expensive because you have the entire team there at the same time. People who are designing it, other people who are designing test plans for it. So they're kind of working in parallel. Okay, guarantee of success in this waterfall model is low because you don't know till the project is finished whether it's successful or not. With the V model, we can develop a small portion of the product and we can test it because the entire team is there. And that's why the success is guaranteed and it's higher. And that's why people like it more. Simplicity, waterfall model is simple. However, the V model, it's not as simple. It's a little more complicated, but a lot of this is design and planning that the team has to do. Flexibility, waterfall is rigid. For example, if you built a 4-bedroom house, you can't go back and take 1 bedroom out or add another bedroom. However, in the V model, it has a little bit of flexibility. What you've done is you built a 2-bedroom house, virtual, and say if it fits a need. If it doesn't, you can add another bedroom virtually and makes it easier. To give you an example on this one, for example, in today's industry. Now, I have 2 of you guys in the room with me in virtual. If I need to add 10 more people, I could do that. 10 people could be on the conference call at the same time. It doesn't take any extra. However, if I have you in physical classroom and classroom is small, it accommodates only 8 people, I would not be able to put 10 people in there. I would have to get a different classroom to do that. So V model is more virtual. It allows you the flexibility to do things like that. Now moving on to reusability. Now reusability with the V model isn't as flexible. On the waterfall model isn't as flexible. It's very limited what you can reuse. However, on the V model, you can reuse a lot of different things. You can reuse components of it, portions of it, and you can use modular approach. I will talk in more detail about that. Now, user involvement. Only at the beginning, users involved. Okay, and they won't see users involved in the beginning to put together requirements, what the requirements are. However, on the V model, users only at the beginning. However, when you look at the model more closely, you'll see that users more involved, more engaged, because you go through several iterations of it. Because you keep going back and keep adding things. And users involved in accepting each one of those changes that is coming through. That change incorporated, yeah. In the waterfall model, it is a little more difficult to make the change. Or in the V model, you can introduce, it's difficult to make a change in the middle of it. However, when you do things in small iteration, you always keep going back and keep adding stuff. And you can always do that at that point. Okay, now let's come to some of the documentations that you will be involved with, and you'll have to be familiar with what these documentations are. Initially, what you do, you'll start up with a test plan. What is a test plan? You'll be familiar with that. Test design description. You'll need to be familiarize yourself with some of the test design descriptions. And once you break that down, it'll be in 2 things. There'll be test procedures and descriptions, and test cases and descriptions for that. And they both depend on each other, and they flow down from test design descriptions. And test execution. Test execution really is, how are you going to run the test? How are you going to do it? And this is where all the work is done. Once all the planning is done, this is where the test is done. So when the execution is done, you'll create test incident reports and you'll create test logs. And this is where the documentation comes in, what the testers do. And you'll put together a summary at the end. Generally, a team lead does that, or you're more experienced in this environment, you'll learn how to do that as well. You'll have to generate a report what the testing is. So as a tester, you'll learn how to do all of these, and we'll cover this in class and how you go about doing that. Okay, now this is the next step, requirement traceability matrix. Now, anything that you do in the design, it has to go back to requirements, right? It has to go back to requirements, say, hey, what did the customer give us the requirements for? And what we're doing testing now, does it really go back and trace back to the requirements? And this is what the requirement traceability matrix is. And this is kind of what it looks like when you talk about that. And we'll discuss how this is done, because each test that you do, it kind of goes back to, hey, what were the codes? What are the lines that it meets? Which page number in the initial design did the requirements come from? And what were the functional design? We'll talk about that. And what are some of the requirements? For example, a restaurant has 2 ordering stations. Okay, and that tells you where it is. And right now you have online restaurants. You basically have requirements based on that. So this requirement traceability matrix becomes the key anytime customer can ask you, or the lead can ask you, here, what are you testing? And you'll say, I'm testing this. And say, well, how does it match with what the requirements are? And you could trace it all the way back to what the requirements are. And you'll learn how to do that. Okay. Now, next one is test environment checklist. So once you do the testing, you'll have to set the environment properly, make sure the environment is set properly to conduct the testing. So you'll kind of go through the checklist of what that is. In every environment, they'll kind of provide you this information, what that is. You'll have to develop it and use it as a reference every time you start testing. For example, in this one, this is an example checklist. It says, is there a proper testing setup? Okay, that means you have a console, you have an access to the system, your login IDs work. Okay. Is there sufficient data available for testing? Okay. Do you have the test cases, test plans, and test scenarios? Okay. Will there be virtual users? Okay. Do you have IDs to log into a system to test this out? Is there sufficient documentation? Okay. Do you have the documentation and how to go about doing the test and how to test this? The next one is version control being followed properly? Okay. Are you testing the right version? Are you checking version 2.1 or version 2.2? You want to make sure that you're checking the proper version. Are there relevant tools and support tools available for testing? Okay. You'll learn about the tools as you go, and the tools will be available to you. And how do you go by testing? If you didn't have the right tools available to test, you would not be able to conduct the test. So it becomes part of your checklist. Now, are the tools costly, including in the licensing cost? That's something that the project manager would worry about, or your team lead would worry about. Do all the network components in the production exist in testing? So this is a checklist which is important as well. You want to make sure what you're testing in the test environment is similar to what is in the production. There will be a group of people who will be validating this information as well. And this becomes basically a checklist for you to test with the other teams. Is the architecture of the test site the same as production? Again, this would be a checklist for you to work with the architect, tell you that both systems and both environments are very similar. And this is the checklist you kind of go through. If something is missing here, or something isn't right, if the architect isn't the same, you'll identify what that is. And this is where you could have potential differences in test results between production and the test environment. You will learn about how to do that. Okay. Now, what you do in testing is really finding defects. And this is a process that you follow in finding defects. The defect management process, you discover the defect, you categorize the defect, what it is. Is it an application error, or is it a browser error, or is it something else? And you work together with the team to work on a resolution. Go back to the developers. Hey, this is a defect. Can you fix it? Once a person fixes it, you do verification. If it is verified, you take it to closure. Hey, that issue is closed. And you make that as part of the reporting. And you report that. Okay? Then you go back to discover the next one. And as you're doing the discovery, you identify that if it is a critical defect, is it a high-level defect, is it a medium defect, is it a low defect? Sometimes they release a product based on timelines. If it is a low defect, they say, okay, let it go, we'll fix it in the next release. And generally, that's what they do with releasing the product. Agile methodology. Now, you will hear a lot about Agile in this world, in this environment. A lot of the software testing and development which is done, it is done in the Agile environment. And there's a whole class dedicated for Agile. There's certifications that the Agiles do. In the teams, what you have is you really have a person who is expert in Agile, and that basically runs a team. Generally what they call it is a Scrum Master. Okay? A person who's very familiar with the Agile process, how it's done. It basically becomes more like a team lead. And it coordinates with the team, with the developers, with the testers, with business analysts. They put together a team, which is called the Agile team. We'll talk about the team size and the function of that. So there'll be a class dedicated for Agile in here, how the work is divided. And there are different roles you will understand that there are. There's a product owner, and we'll define what the roles are for the product owner. And how the requirement list is created. So creating a backlog. So all the requirements is considered backlog. So from the backlog, you work with the customer, you define what system you're going to build. And you bring that into a sprint backlog. Okay? So from the backlog, you work with the customers to identify which one is the important stuff, which is urgent, and you bring that into a development cycle. And the whole development cycle really is anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks for you to develop a product, test a product, and you release a product. We'll talk about what that cycle is and how do you go about doing that. This is very, very productive way of doing things. And you get the results very, very quickly. And customers engage, customer gets the output pretty quickly. In 2 to 4 weeks, they'll see a small portion of the output that the team produces. And they get a say into what it is. And they'll do the acceptance of the product. In the waterfall model, they don't find out about the end results 2 or 3 years down the road or much later. In this agile world, they find out about the product or a small component of the product within weeks of initiation. So this is why things are becoming very, very popular. This is very, very dynamic. And once you start the agile cycle, hey, develop this product for me. They keep coming back with more enhancements and changes. So this cycle continues to grow. So a lot of times, for example, project was limited for 2 years. And they say, okay, this project starts and finishes in 2 years. With the agile, it just continues on. It goes on for months to years because customer keeps adding and enhancing the product and the team keeps working on it. So this goes on and on, which is good for the business and good for the people as well. We'll talk about this in more detail in the Agile class. Okay. Last, we'll come down to SQL. Now, SQL basically is a simple query language which is used to extract information from database. A database, as you know, is a system which holds a lot of information in tables. For example, this is a table for an employee number ID, employee name, gender, what state they're in, and their salary. Okay. Now you want to extract the information from this and say, okay, I want to pull the information based on salary. I want to give it a title, what I think they may be. Okay. So what you're doing is you're putting together a small script, which is called SQL, simple query language. And you'll learn about this, how to write this query, how to use this information, and how to create a table like this. So there'll be a class dedicated for this. For example, you're selecting employee name. So this is the name of the table. And you're defining the case, what the case is. The case is this. While salary, that means you're going to look at the salary. And if the range is anywhere from 80 to 100,000, you're going to label it director in this area. Okay. Then you're going to check the salary. If it's anywhere between 50 and 80,000, you're going to call it senior consultant. And else you're going to label it just director and find out designation. Okay. So based on this script, you developed all this information out from this table and created this new table, what it is. And you actually introduced a new column in here based on your definition. If it is a director, senior consultant, or something else. Okay. So in here, based on this, if it doesn't fit into these two categories, we'll give it a director name. So here you'll see an example. And Gilbert was making only 42,000, but you also labeled it as a director, right? Okay. This is based on the query you wrote. So here we go. You created a new table from here. So in the SQL class, you'll learn how to manipulate, how to look at the information, how do you manipulate the information, and how do you put together new information from the database that you report. You'll learn about SQL. Now, a lot of this is done in manual testing, in the backend testing, and as you're doing the analysis, you'll do some of this as well. So it's crucial that you learn how to do SQL. This is where the rubber meets the road, and roughly, this is how it's done. You'll spend some time on it, you'll write queries on it, you'll have exercises on it, and you'll learn how to do this. Okay. So, guys, this is all the material I have for the outline for the manual testing that you guys will be covering in the manual class. So, any questions? So this is the time where Anil and Jennifer, you guys can ask if you have any questions on this one so far.
I don't have any questions at the moment.
Okay, great.
No,
Anil?
No questions, please.
Okay, great. Good. Okay, I just wanted to give you an update. The instructor who is teaching this class had a family emergency and he had to fly to India. So what I will be doing is I'll be slightly changing the design of the class and what we cover and when we cover. And I'll change the schedule slightly from a normal schedule to accommodate him being able to do his stuff and me being able to fill in for him. And he said he'll go check. He's basically flying to India right now. And once he gets there, I'll ask him to take a look at it, see if he can actually do a class or two from there. And once I find out from him, I'll let you know, and we'll schedule a class that way. And see if he can cover that. If that doesn't work, I'll fill in the material and I'll introduce some of the agile class. I'll do some of the interview classes, which we're supposed to do later, but we can bring it in sooner. In fact, what I'm thinking is we'll probably pull you into the interview class, which I would do generally later on, but I'll pull you in that earlier so you can see what's going on and how we coach people, how do we train people to get ready for the interviews in the market. So I'll pull you into that class as well. But right now, the class schedule was generally from 9:30 to 11 o'clock. But due to this situation, I'm going to be changing it probably to the afternoon, around 3 o'clock. Will that work for you?
You said you're changing it for afternoon classes?
Yes, for at least the next 2 weeks. Would that work?
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great. Great. Anil, would that work for you too?
Yeah, that is something I have an issue about. I mean,
Okay.
the first few minutes I was not there, so I just joined late, so I'm not sure what's going on before that. So I have to talk to you about that.
Okay. I can share the recording with you. I was just going through the outline for the class, what the class is going to cover. So this whole day today was covering the outline and what to expect in this one. So this class is roughly about four weeks. Once we cover the material in 4 weeks, after that you can move into the automation class. We learn Java and we learn Selenium, TestNG, and how to write scripts to do automation testing. So which is pretty involved class. There'll be a lot of hands-on class. This is not as much hands-on. This is going to be more of understanding theory and the concept or how things are done. I'll be giving you guys homework assignments on test cases and test plans to make sure that you understand what they are. Um, so as you're building the concepts and understanding what they are, you'll be using that more and more as you progress in class. So you solidify your understanding of the material and the concepts. So Anil, with the time that we started this one around 3 p.m., is that suitable for you?
Uh, on what days are we having the class, sir?
Okay. For next week is actually Thanksgiving week. Um, so I was thinking about taking the Thanksgiving week off, but what I will do is I'll give you some material and some assignments that you can study, and we'll pick the class back up a week after that, which will be in December. But I'll be
Okay.
working closely with you in developing the understanding of the concept. So the class is going to be today, and tomorrow, if you're interested, I'll pull you into the interview class, which is going to be conducted around the same time, around 3 o'clock. It'll be roughly about an hour, and they'll give you the insight of the previous class who finished and the ones who are ready to go in the market. I'll be coaching them on the interview skills. And I think you can benefit from that class as well because it complements of where you want to go. And I think you'll benefit from that. That way you'll understand, I guess, where you're headed and what kind of questions will be asked during the interviews and how do you prepare for the market. So I think this will help. So I'll have a class today. I mean, today we had at 3 o'clock. Tomorrow I'll do another class at 3 o'clock. Next week we'll take off. Um, and the week after that, we'll pick things back up on Saturday and Sunday at 3 p.m. Will that work?
So, so the classes will be only on Saturday and Sunday, you said, sir?
Yes, Saturday and Sunday.
Okay, Saturday and Sunday, and preferably you said it's going to be at 3 o'clock, you said?
Yes, for me, because I'm doing another class in the morning, I would not be able to teach it at the same time as the instructor generally does. And he generally has a class in the morning around 9:30 or so. So it runs into a conflict with my other class. So I teach in the, once I finish with that, then I'll teach in the afternoon. This one. So for next 2 weeks or so, while the instructor is away, I'll be teaching the class in the afternoon at 3 o'clock. Come December, more than likely he's going to be back the first week. When he comes back, he can do the class in the morning. So I just want to make sure that both the times will work for you, for both of you. Because class is small enough, we have a few more students joining us, but it creates a flexibility where you can maneuver it in the afternoon or in the morning. So I want to make sure it's okay for both of you.
Saturday and Sunday, 3 to 4, is that so? Or
Yes. It's going to be, actually, once the teacher comes in, he's going to be doing 3 to 5, but he's going to be doing it in the morning. from 9:30 to 11:30 or so. For me, basically, I'm doing some class during that time, so I can't teach at that time. So I'll be teaching at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, from 3 to 4 or 3 to 4:30 or so, depending on the material we have.
And this is going to be for only 4 weeks, sir?
No, this is going to be longer than that because when the instructor comes in, he'll give you additional work material.
So
It's
that will
going
be
to be
approximately about 6 weeks.
approximately about 5 weeks or so.
So 5 weeks on Saturday and Sunday, 3 to 4, 4:30. That's what you say.
Yes, yes. What he'll do is when he comes back, he'll quiz you and make sure you understand the material, you have absorbed the material, and if he feels like he needs to spend more time, he'll spend more time on it. And the goal is for us to be able to teach you and for you to absorb the material and learn. And that's how the class is. Generally takes about 4 weeks, full scale, but in this situation, I think it's going to take about five weeks.
Yeah, okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, because I work too, so I work on the weekends too. So that's the thing. I have to just check with my schedule too. So 3 to 4:30 is fine on Saturdays and Sundays.
Okay.
That should be okay. Let me check.
Okay. And if you have the flexibility, and flexibility is great when you have a smaller class. So either way will work. If that afternoon works better for you, it's fine. You can move the class in the afternoon. As long as that works for Jennifer as well, we can move the class in the afternoon.
So are we going to, for how long this class is going to be today? I mean, the overview.
Today, I'm just wrapping the class up right now, and
Okay.
I'll give you some assignments. By Monday, I'll give you some assignments. I'm also going to invite you to the class tomorrow, which is the interview class. And if you can join, great. If not, I'll have the recording for the class.
What you said it's an interview class?
I'm going to be doing interview preparation class.
Oh, for somebody else? Okay.
For the previous class we just finished. So I think you can benefit from that as well.
Okay.
If you can join, great. If you can't join, you can always listen to the recording, but I'll be repeating the class later on as well.
Yeah. So is there any way I can talk to you
Sure.
after the class?
Absolutely. Once you finish the class, you and I can talk.
Yeah, okay, then let's go ahead. Let's
Okay.
go.
Sounds great. Now, Jennifer, do you have any questions?
No, everything works for me. So you said for the next 2 weeks, the class will be between 3 and 5 p.m. And then Thanksgiving, we're not going to have a class, but you're going to give us assignments and everything?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Sounds great.
Yep,
Sounds
that
great.
works.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.